My story starts on March 2nd, 1991. This is the day that George Holliday walked up to his living room window, pointed his camera out, and pressed record. The footage that he captured showed the LAPD striking Rodney King 50 times during the course of the arrest. This footage spread like wildfire across the globe. And what it did is it put the handycam on the map as a powerful human rights tool. The other thing it did is it served as the catalyst to launch Witness, which is the organization that I have the honor of working for today. And Witness is an international human rights organization that believes that video puts human into human rights. Our original vision was very simple. We were just going to send cameras out to the world because we thought if we could hear people's powerful personal stories, we would begin to empathize, and that in turn would create meaningful change. And so that's what we did. We sent cameras out. But the beginning had its challenges. The cameras were bulky and expensive back then. There were different formats in different countries. And because we were sending cameras out with limited instructions and without any training guides, when the footage came back to New York, it shouldn't have surprised us that it was really hard to cobble together a compelling story about human rights abuses. We did, however, rumor has it, see a lot of wedding videos on the footage that came back in. But that was not our goal. Our goal was not to create wedding videos. So what we did is we went and we created a framework that would help human rights defenders to create powerful advocacy videos. And that framework that we launched 20 years ago still serves as the bedrock of our video advocacy trainings today. We do a lot of trainings, but we also work in campaign partnerships. And what our campaign partnership is that we have a partner who specializes in an issue, and we pair up with them, and we bring the video advocacy strategy and the training to the table using that methodology. And this forms a powerful alliance so that we can create these powerful videos. And so what I want to do to help you envision how we work with our partners is I want to tell you a story about trust. And this story begins in 2009. In 2009, I had the great opportunity to interview one of my heroes. Her name is Professor Mary Wood. Oops, that's not supposed to be there yet. Okay. Well, I'll tell you about Nelson in a minute. I had the opportunity to interview Mary Wood about a daring legal theory that can possibly stop human-induced climate change now. This theory is called atmospheric trust litigation. And while that may sound complicated, it's not. It's rooted in two different legal principles. First, it's based on the public trust doctrine. And the public trust doctrine is a legal principle that is enshrined in the laws of every single civilized government across the world. And it has been since time immemorial. And all this doctrine says is that our governments have a trust obligation to take care of the natural resources that we all share in common and depend upon for our very survival. Resources such as our air and our water. The public trust doctrine embodies another legal principle that's enshrined in human rights law, and that's the doctrine of intergenerational justice. And intergenerational justice is easy. All that means is the adults cannot have a party on the planet and leave it a mess for the kids. So, on Mother's Day in 2011, in celebration of Mother Earth, our youth teamed up with attorneys, legal scholars, the top climate scientists, and law students, and they brought actions against all 50 states, as well as the federal government, to compel our governments to not only take care of our atmosphere, but to take care of their futures. And what they're asking the courts to do is extremely logical. They're asking the courts to do three things. One, to say out loud that the climate is a resource that we all share. Once we've admitted this, we need to protect it in trust for everyone, not so that one industry can profit from the destruction of a common resource. And third, they just want the courts to tell the government to come up with a plan to take care of the atmosphere, and that plan has to be based on science instead of based on politics. Okay? So, witness became committed to atmospheric trust litigation because it's well recognized and understood that climate change will be, and probably already is, one of the most pressing human rights issues that our society is going to face. It's threatening because it brings about more storms, more floods, more droughts, more fires, more heat waves, and more sea level rise. And what this is already causing? It's already causing more hunger, more disease, more contamination of our fresh water supplies, more roads are being washed out, more homes are being lost, there's more conflict, and at the end of the day, there is more loss of life. We have to stop ignoring the threats of climate change. But atmospheric trust litigation is more than a remarkable legal strategy that's dealing with a looming human rights crisis. It brings along strategic partners. Our partners, Our Children's Trust, and the I Matter campaign have a concrete advocacy goal. They want to compel governments to come up with concrete plans, climate recovery plans that are based on the best available science and that use an evidence-based prescription to address climate change. They also have a very defined target audience that they want to share the stories of our youth with. They want to share the stories of our youth that are being impacted by climate change with 50 state governors, 50 attorney generals, President Obama, and the heads of Interior, Ag, Commerce, Defense, Energy, and the EPA. They also have a very straightforward message. And this message is that someday is now when it comes to climate change. And that it is our youngest generations that are going to be hit the hardest. Most importantly, they have compelling stories. And Witness felt that if we could use technology to elevate these stories of the youth, we could protect all of your basic human rights. So now what I want to introduce you to is my friend Nelson Canuck, a very close friend who is part of the Sitka Youth Leadership Committee. He's an apprentice firefighter. He is a Native Youth Olympic athlete. He's 17 years old. He's from Kipnuk, Alaska. And he is being impacted by climate change now. And here's Nelson.
Kipnuk, it's a small community, a village. It's not really connected to the outside world, but I was always interested in what's going on all around us. I was curious about climate change and how it was affecting us. I didn't realize how bad it was. When I finally understood what climate change was, I thought, what could I do to help? I thought that would help a lot to tell my story of how we're being affected by climate change on this side of the world.
If you know it's right in your heart, I told them, don't be afraid to tell.
It's mostly about the winter coming late. The snow would usually come around September or October, but for the past few years it's been coming around November. In December 2008, it was the worst flood that I remember. You could see all of this water just flowing swiftly into the village that way, and at the same time there was these huge ice sheets that were just coming in fast, and heard these loud thumps and bumps on the side of the house. And I figured that was probably the ice sheets that broke apart from the river that are hitting the house. After the water went back into the river, there was just brown, sticky mud all over the ground and wherever the water touched. That mud was on top of these steps, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Floods in December are uncommon. The river is usually frozen all the way till spring. And also the erosion that we're facing here. The warmer temperatures are causing the permafrost to melt, and the permafrost to melt affects the land through erosion. So the erosion cuts off some land that falls into the river, and we lose quite a bit each year. This spring, my dad and I, we measured how far it was. This year we lost about 8 feet, and a few weeks ago we lost another 5 feet. Yeah, we have another 40 or so feet left until the bank of the river reaches our house. If it keeps moving at the same rate, then in the next few years, then we might have to move our house to another location.
Nelson shared that I thought it would help a lot to share my story. And this wisdom is tried and true. For many years, we've been sharing stories, and they have helped a lot. So while the foundation of Witness's work is still based in the powerful personal story, we have to address basically a changing landscape. Because what is happening is that the landscape of video for change is swirling all around us. 2011 was basically the year of cameras everywhere. From the squares of the Middle East to the streets of Lower Manhattan, human rights activists and digital activists stepped out to have their stories be heard on video. And they were hoping, like Nelson, that their voices would be heard. So 2011 was really truly the year that marks broadly the moment that Witness's original vision came true. We wanted to give cameras to the world, and now, as other of my colleagues talked about, there are cell phones everywhere, and most of them have cameras on them. There's 5 billion cell phones out there and counting. And so with all these cell phones out there in the hands of human rights activists and digital activists alike, the goals, or the challenges that we're facing now are very different than the ones we originally faced. And now much of Witness's work is oriented towards ensuring that tens of thousands of human rights defenders have the tools and tactics that they need to elevate their voices to make sure their stories are heard. And what I'm going to do now is I want to make a couple more introductions of people to help you guys understand what the challenges are. Oops. This is Na Papa. She's going to teach us about fully informed consent. Na Papa is a teacher from a community that is on the run in eastern Burma. In 2006, she agreed to go on video, knowing that she might be imprisoned, that she might be relocated, knowing that she might be executed. And she did this before the proliferation of YouTube. And then 3 years later, her video, her story was heard by over 1 million people, which means that Na Papa could have her story heard by the very military that was trying to hurt her. So what we have to do in this world of changing technology is we really have to look to inform human rights defenders before they speak out about the risks that they're going to change. But this is extremely hard, given that there's a changing landscape happening all around us. The second story I want to introduce you to is from a prison in Egypt. And it teaches us about dignity. In 2009, the Egyptian police filmed themselves beating and humiliating people that they detained. And then they took this video and they spread it throughout Cairo in order to intimidate demonstrators. Now, this man who was beaten did not agree to be beaten, but nor did he agree to be videotaped, and nor did he agree to have that videotape sent out and spread across the city for everyone to see. So when perpetrators create trophy videos, we have to figure out how to turn the tables on those perpetrators. We have to figure out how to capitalize on that video, and we have to figure out how to restore this man's dignity. The next is a story about the criminal sexual exploitation of children in the United States. In 2010, Katrina Owens shared her story about how she was manipulated and sold for sex by a trafficker. She did this with the support of ECPAT USA. And she did this because in 44 out of 50 states, Children that are bought and sold are sometimes tossed in jail to protect them from their pimp. This is the equivalent of tossing me in jail to protect me from my rapist. It's not right. But what I want to focus on and highlight today is the work that ECPAT USA did to ensure that Katrina was not re-victimized. Because when you tell your story over again as a survivor of a human rights abuse, and when you see it over and over again, that causes more trauma. And we have to make sure this is not happening to the people that we film and actually speak out. I want to quickly talk about Iran. In Iran, the police, the government, took to crowdsourcing video in order to identify the people that they wanted to punish. So what they did is they went onto YouTube, they grabbed footage, and then they put it up on the internet and made a call out to the public to say, hey, help us identify these people. Give us their names. So in a day where there's technology all over the place, we have to consider how to protect our personal security, our privacy, and our visual anonymity. So where does that leave us today? It leaves us committed to two different things. It leaves us committed to long-term partnerships because as we all know, essential change takes time, it takes big risks, it takes leaps of faith, and it takes profound dedication. But it also leaves us on figuring out how we can support human rights advocates on the ground as they deal with these challenges. And if you go to Witness's website, you'll find many tools. You'll find a video action toolkit that will help you plan an advocacy video and addresses safety, security, consent, and ethical representation. You'll find videos that in 10 minutes will teach you how to safely and securely film protest. You'll find a smart cam on your phone that we're working on with Guardian Project that allows you to immediately blur the faces of people behind you so they can't be identified. It allows you to wipe metadata from video if that phone is then later confiscated. So there are many tools and tactics, and my invitation to you today is that as we think about how to go out and scale up our communication, scale up our voices, scale up our ability to be heard, that we think about and learn about and research and adopt and implement different ways that we can be sure that we can protect all of our basic human rights. I believe that storytelling is one of the most powerful tools that we have as human beings. And so I really look forward to seeing how all you guys are going to tell yours.